A lot of young men, they grow up to be imbalanced adult men. As a man, if you're okay with doing that, that tells a lot about your character.
Complete this sentence. To be a man, and then what comes to mind? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Mike's got a topic for us.
Yes, sir. So today we're going to talk about being a man and really what that entails. And this conversation was sparked by a lot of different things. You know, we go through our Men 2.0 series and we have these type of discussions, but a lot of men that are watching this, they don't. And so we felt like it's important to put this on the podcast and just really take a deep dive. And it's a song by somebody named Dax. And to be honest, I never had heard of this artist. Somehow from my YouTube, the video looked, interesting. So I clicked on it. And the song is called To Be a Man. And what it is it's just talking about like a lot of different seasons of life that we go through as men. And myself personally, I feel like I'm in two different worlds almost, where I'm at the age and the point now where I can start looking back on some things that my father and my stepfather were doing that I didn't understand. But now that I have kids, I'm like, oh, I get why they had to do certain things. And at the same time, where they're at now, I'm starting to understand that's what's coming up. Some of the different, challenges, some of the different conversations that we're having. So we just felt like it was a great topic to just unpack because it can go so many different ways. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to equip people to just have all the tools to just navigate all these different seasons.
Growing up, like you said, to be a man, I remember being a little boy and my dad telling me something or showing me something, right? And he's like, well, as a man, you're supposed to look somebody in the eye, and these are things that a man do. And, as a boy, you think, okay, you got this roadmap, right? And you're thinking that's, okay, I'm gonna focus on that one thing. But as you get older, to your point, everything, you start to understand there's more to it. And even at, the age I'm at now, it's more to it. It's like you never stop evolving and understanding what it means to be a man. It's not I used this before, but it's not a destination, it's a journey.
I thought it was interesting in the song when it was specifically talking about like all of the struggles that a man goes through and how it's almost in the dark and unacknowledged. Mm-hmm. That's what kind of stood out to me the most about that song. Well, other than the fact that there was a country singer in it. When you listen to the words, he was speaking about, how a man's gonna take care of the kids. A man's gotta keep the house in order. The man, there's people who, you give back or you say, you celebrate the man on like Father's Day and everything like that, but you can't possibly fully understand the perspective of that man who has to keep everything in order because it's like, if things go wrong, it's on him. If things go good, everybody's not giving him all the praise. It's going to the mom.
Yeah. I once heard where like moms receive unconditional love. Usually. Now, if it's a break or something extremely traumatic, something unusual has to happen for that not to be the case, right? Mm-hmm. So once again, moms receive unconditional love. Fathers, on the other hand, it's always conditional. Your worth a lot of times is attached to what and how you provide. And a lot of times, a lot of men get out of balance. And one of the lyrics that kind of stood out to me was, you end up building a house that you don't recognize as a home. Yeah. And that was deep to me. I'm like, man, it's just thinking about it, like that's a painful scenario where, you literally are the provider of everything. Like you said, everybody, if you're a traditional man, now just a disclaimer.
Clarify, you guys.
Everybody has different definitions and ways that they run their household. Nothing is right or wrong. I'm not saying, we're just speaking traditional terms. Historically, this is usually how it went. So if you're a provider and you know, in a way, you're making all of this possible. Mm-hmm. You know, you paying the bills at the end of the day. But at the same time, I think that is a huge thing where a lot of men, they just don't feel like they have that commonality with anybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, the whole piece about not feeling like you can really truly express what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm speaking for myself, you know, I'm still learning how to articulate how I feel about certain things. You know what I'm saying? Because as a man, you kind of condition where you just kind of, you grit and bear, you figure it out yourself. You know, it's like, hey, you know, you don't really go out and complain about the issue. You just kind of, you might go out with your boys, talk about what's going on. But at home, it's like, you know, everything, to your point, got to be right. And, you know, your wife don't want to hear about, well, you know, we got to balance this and do that, or you got to take care of the yard, you got to fix the roof and do all that. No, they expect you to take care of that. And so when you come home, you don't feel like it's home because you don't feel always appreciated. Now, we're not saying that's our situation, but the point though is that a lot of men, I think, if we're honest, we go through that in some form of fashion throughout our life.
Essentially, it's like, it's almost like a pressure cooker at times.
Yeah.
And like we said, we're speaking for men in general. You know, it's not necessarily anybody up here specifically, but a lot of men do feel like they're in a pressure cooker because if you think about it, if you're the guy, when everything falls, the lights go off or the mortgage not paid, they're gonna look at, hey, what's going on, buddy?
Come on, dog.
But like you said, Martell, when we have achievements, we achieve as a team. Yeah, we did it. We get this. We get that. We get this. Yeah. That's the team. But when things go wrong, it falls on your head. And, you know, it's been times where, you know, I've had conversations with my wife. I said, listen, you know, this is a lot. We're going to navigate through this, but at the end of the day, you have me. And I've taken this responsibility where certain things, that falls under my helm because I'm taking that responsibility for better or for worse. And that is something because I've been told at times that, you know what, you gotta balance that out. And the truth is, I really don't know any other way. You know, now that we're having like our men 2.0 discussions, we're adding tools. I'm learning a lot of this. I didn't have these skill sets. A lot of men don't. We don't grow up being raised with balance, you know, and I like, for me personally, like I left my mom, I moved away from my mom at 13. I lived with my dad. It was a completely different regimen. Like I grew up fast, you know, because when you're dealing with men, it's like, it's just different. You know, the love is there, but it's like, hey, nobody got time to be wiping your nose and look, clean off. Look, you got to get it done. And so in some ways, I learned a lot of great survival skills. But in other ways, I can see where there's some disconnects as far as like the tools in my toolbox, as far as like, you know, just even like, you know, being a little bit more understanding with the wife or compassionate. And, you know, in our household, we have 4 boys and me, she's the only woman. So it's like, we kind of, you know, we try to spoil her, but at the same time, we don't exactly understand, like, you know, she might be having an emotional day or, you know, anything that women do. It's like, we don't really understand it because we, you know, we think different.
Yeah.
One thing I think is interesting that you brought up earlier is you clarified traditional man, you know, as opposed to, you know, just clumping in everybody together. But I think let's sit there for a second. So the whole concept that we're talking about is the guy who shows up and he's a leader of his household. The guy who comes in, he's providing, he's protecting, he's cultivating, he's making sure that everything that is under his roof is taken care of. And so it's like, this has now become like the traditional man, but it is a man. Like in terms of the definition of the man, that is what the man's role is. So
Supposed to be.
Yeah. And so now we've gotten to a time where we have to give that a label as traditional. Now, to me, that sounds wild.
Well, and I think you can go here or I can go here. Let's define, and if we're going to find the definition, talk about man 2.0, talking about what we've been learning. We've been learning what a man is based on God's design. Mm-hmm. So maybe let's frame out the way God designed man to be, okay? He designed us to be, to lead,
Oh, yeah.
Create, cultivate, and basically, and we are to lead in that way. So we are supposed to be leaders. We are supposed to be the head of the household. Now we're not more than our wives. We are equal. We are one, but we are the leader of the household.
So with that in mind, it almost seems natural for the chips to fall in the way that we just described, if you think about it. Because it's like, okay, you are the leader, you're the provider, you're the protector of this, you're cultivating everything. If this don't work, big dog, what did you do? Yeah. Or what did you not do?
But I will say this, just being, realistic and fair to what we're dealing with in today's society. We have a lot, our culture specifically, there's been a lot of systemic issues that have purposely taken men outside of the house. Like this is not opinion. We can go look back. There's many, many instances. Like I'll say, when I see all the time, I do real estate. My rentals are Section 8. I partner with the government. And every one of those households is in the contract. Like it can't be a man in there. You know what I'm saying? Like it has to be a certain level. And so what happens a lot of times, a lot of these people, they end up trying to work around the system where on paper, they're not showing the man. So when they always end up having a man, let's be clear. But what happens is they find ways to circumvent. Mm-hmm. So now you're limiting your choices to a man that's okay with shacking up. Okay, cool. I'll play the game with you because you get your rent paid. I come in and act like that right there is a problem. If as a man, if you're okay with doing that, that tells a lot about your character. And if we go, let's go back to the root of this thing. We know the way it's supposed to be, right? That's the Bible. That's the blueprint of the original man. Another one of the issues is, as young boys, you have to be around strong men and to glean different characteristics. It's very challenging to just read about this in books. Like you literally have to be exposed to it. Not necessarily, hopefully it's your biological father, but if it's not, it could be an uncle, it could be a elder brother, it could be a mentor, it could be a coach, a teacher, somebody. And one of the biggest issues is that in a lot of our households with our single mothers, they've had to take on so much responsibility that they become, just being honest, they become a little bit upset about it. And they keep their kids, I've had to provide, I've had to do this. So they coming with me. When they have their good moments, they're going to still be with me. And so these young boys aren't really exposed. And then they end up inheriting some of the hurt. Mm-hmm. And they look at their own father or potential mentors with disdain because they see the pain that their mom is going through.
And what you laying out is what's happened, the conditioning that's happened. And actually, and I want to call it, it's just not just conditioning. It's also by design in a lot of ways. When we talk about black men, especially, that and I'm glad you put it out there. So we're laying out why things are the way they look right now. And we also laid out the fact that that's not how we were designed by God to be as men in the house. Mm-hmm. The system is helping to, perpetuate that whole thing where the man is not in the house, especially black men, and demasculate, role switch or confusion where you got, women, because men aren't stepping up, are having to wear both hats.
Yeah.
They're trying, we talked about that before. So the thing though, is we talk about this, so, and I like I said, this topic can go in many directions, but it's clear we need to understand, like even now, there are good men out there, but that leadership role, like, the strong man leading the house, we do have individuals, brothers who are still leading their houses, but the wife is like the breadwinner. And I know it's one brother, wife has done great in the, out there and running president of companies and all that. They made an active decision where he's at home. He took care of the kids because her career took off, but he's still the man of the house.
Right.
And I applaud. I mean, they even did an article on him like some years ago. And I'm like, okay, because it switches things up a little bit in your head. You know what I mean? Because now, I ain't in the house, but I talked to him years ago, and to me, like, Rod, this is what works for us.
Here's the situation when it comes to that. I think one way that people can get this whole thing wrong is they think, oh, because we listed a few different things that characterize a man. Now, a lot of people will clump that into provider. And then when you get into that situation, you're like, oh, he can't possibly be the man because he's not making the most in the household. And so it's like, since the role isn't just limited to one specific function of that role, you can't disqualify a guy because he's not doing the most of that particular thing. Now, in that situation, it is a pretty unique situation because, like, if we talk about back in the day, traditionally, that would be unheard of. Yeah. Because the ideas of what a man was haven't always been right. Look, there was always the narrow path. And so I think the guy who can be in a household where the female makes more than him, but he can still be a leader in that household, because leadership isn't about a dollar amount, but he can still be a leader in that household. I think that's a strong person right there.
I agree.
Without feeling like, he's less than, without cowering, without feeling like his wife is beating on him every single day, without, having no respect amongst his kids. You gotta be a certain type of fella to be able to hold down a house and not make the most money in that house.
The reason why that is like a perception is this tradition, but at the same time it's control too, right? Because I think sometimes that false control comes with, and we all seen it. I know I've seen it. I'll talk about my own parents, but traditional. My dad worked, he paid all the bills, and so forth. Took care of the house. We never wanted for anything. But my mother, she worked. Her money was her money. She didn't contribute to paying the mortgage and car notes and insurance and all that. And so, but let's talk about how she got there, right? Before, my dad was like, he did what he wanted to do, and he felt, hey, I'll bring the money, all that stuff. My mother was like, well, look, I'll get a job. You ain't gonna control me that way, So it gets misused, it gets misdefined, and to your point, a brother who can sit there and say, look, you know what? They're confident in themselves. Their wife, see them as a leader and don't put them in that position, is good. But as men, we can't do that either. You know what I mean? I seen guys say that too, like, well, I make the money, and if that's coming out your mouth.
Oh yeah, you in trouble.
Yeah. But so that's a good point. And going back to like the root of what we kind of led into the conversation, where a lot of that is misguided energy. And when I'm saying misguided energy, I'm speaking about like real pain that a lot of men are going through. And that's another reference, to life first and foremost, but the song talks about it where, I never seen my dad cry. Seen him live a few times, but at the end of the day, he soldiered on. He was a man. And that's what we were taught, like, to be a man where, you do have some generational, some people call them curses, some people call them just, that's what we've always done. But it's a lot of pain gets passed down. I sent you guys a clip the other day. I don't know if you saw it, but it was Denzel talking about his role in the movie Fences. And he was just talking about how him and his son, like, I don't know if you guys seen it, but they never got on the same page. And his son used to, it was hard. It was tough. It was old school. And his son, like, one day was like, man, why don't you love me? Why don't you like me? And he was like, listen, it's not in my contract, my duty to like you. I'm gonna provide for you. You got clothes on your back, food on. And he was just going through like the bare essentials and saying, I don't got like, basically. And if you have generations of this, it kind of, it leaves, a lot of young men, they grow up to be imbalanced adult men.
Well, you don't feel loved by your father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess that example, I saw a clip, but I didn't realize that I didn't see the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's dope.
Yeah. So, but that scenario, how that played out, because the son always gravitate to their father, just naturally. We just do that.
Yeah.
And you want to feel appreciated. You want to feel like, hey, you want your father to be proud of you. You want all these different things to happen. And the son reaching out like that, as a dad, a lot of times we are equipped to give that emotional response, to show the love the way they want to show it. Not X. Yeah, and I take that scenario you talked about. Like my dad was like, look, he was like, look, I got to get you ready to survive and live. You know what I mean? You need to understand how to make money. You need to understand how to take care of yourself. You need to understand that your word is your bond. All these different things. He's like, his thing was, I got to pour on you so when you get out of this house, you will, for one, you ain't coming back. Two, you survive. You know what I'm saying?
For all of the imbalance that some of the men that's raised from that cut, including myself, where, no, this is what we do, provide, you want to run the household, and this is what it is. You can be out of balance, but it's pros and cons to everything. Mm-hmm. Because on the flip side, what we see now, and not just now, this has always been, but like it's very prevalent where you do have the, emotional discussion coming up. No, men should be able to talk about their feelings and their emotion, but then it's that can be out of balance too.
Yeah.
Everything is an emotion.
Yeah.
I can't pay the rent, man. My mental health not right. I ain't going to work. You know what I mean? And I'm not making I'm saying it as a joke.
It's the truth.
That's the truth. Because now you see, it's just a lot. Listen, some things you do gotta just kind of soldier on. You can't let every little thing that comes up just be catastrophic and just you gotta go shut down.
I think if you are a person who wants to claim yourself as a man, then I feel like, well, one thing that I know for certain is you need to be able to take responsibility. So if you're in a situation where you're trying to, I don't feel good, therefore I won't. I don't. My ankle hurts, or you talked to me wrong, or I went to this thing and they looked at me this kind of way, therefore I will not do the essentials of being a man. You can't claim it. You can't claim it. And so, yes, we get into this territory of like, okay, well, shoot, in the bare minimum scenario, you can't give what you don't have. And so if all you can give is all of I'm gonna make sure that you at least breathe. Like you got clothes, you got food, and I'm gonna make sure that you can make it to at least my age, hopefully, with what I'm putting into you. But if you're talking about all that emotional stuff, look, I ain't never got that. So how can I really give that to you? Right. Now, I'm not saying this as like something where, oh, now you get a pass. You get a pass today because, your father didn't have X, Y, and Z. You get to a certain age and you become conscious of a thing. Now it's on you. And so if you decide that you will not develop these things and you have kids and you don't give them what you didn't have and you already know it, now I gotta look at you funny, right?
I just talk about my dad. And look, my dad, I think, great father, love him, still here today. We more as I got older, he's still my father, but we became friends. Our conversations changed. Mm-hmm. But he didn't have a father. He never knew his father. Never wanted to know his father, just because of how his father had left him. Mm-hmm. So he had to learn how to be a man for different people, uncles, and so forth. And it was interesting. He had two different people. He had one individual who was a pastor, who was like a father figure to him. And then he had one uncle who was like in the street, who was like a father figure to him.
Rich dad.
Crazy, right? So he getting morality over here. Yeah. He getting how to go to the street and get the women over here, right? Yeah. So and I just learned this, over the last few years. Over the last few years. So, he didn't. So that's what he got. But the emotional piece of that and all that, he's better with it now and everything. But he didn't have it. And I think about it, you said something else in your comment. It's like, but that's no excuse. Because like we sit up and talk, we learn and evolve, we say Man 2.0, Man 2.0 definitely is helping me, and I think all of us understand ourselves a little bit more. And as we do that, then we got the tools, we should try to enact them and be better. You know, you're a father, as you deal with your kids, as I deal with, you know, myself and my wife and just other brothers in general, you know, as you deal with individuals, it's like, it makes you kind of like, okay, wait, how I even deal with my mother? You know what I'm saying?
It's one of those things where, man, there's so much that this subject, like we can go on and on, but it's one of those things where we're in the information age. So like you were saying, as men, we have to seek. We got to seek what we want to be and go towards that. Like you have to have real, authentic self-analysis of what's going on, where you're at, and you have to look at your peer group. Look at the 5 people that you spend most of your time with and see what they spend their time doing. And if that's not aligned with what the principles and goals and the criteria of the man that you strive to be, you have to make adjustments. You know, you get to a certain point where, I think it was Martin Luther King, but it's basically like, or maybe he just repeated it, was when I was a child, you know, I spoke like a child. He made it famous, I think.
It was biblical, yeah, that's scripture.
But he repeated it. So when I was a child, I spoke like a child. You know, when I became a man, I had to change my thoughts. You have to have a man way of looking, and it's not age. That's another thing too. We're not talking about a certain age, because you can be a 50-year-old fool. You know, it's plenty of them. Yeah. Or you could be a 20-year-old wise man. You know, it's just, this is something that when you get to a certain mental maturity and it's like, I believe it's spiritual. When the spirit really kind of tells you, you need to be going over here, you need to be going, and you feel it. And we all have these feelings. And we, you know, this could really be a Men 2.0 episode. Guys, it keeps coming in my mind, not because of the fact that we host it, the fact that we have real interactions with men that come and they say, man, listen, like I really needed this, because I felt like I was on an island. I was lonely. I was going through pain. I didn't know what to do. Like we've had real interaction. When I'm not going to go into details about, you know, what anything spoke about, because that's the beauty of the organization. You know, when we're in there, we having those conversations. It's a safe space among men. It's no judgment. And what tends to happen is you find out, man, I'm not alone. Like other men are going through the same mental iterations, whereas a lot of times it's not being communicated. You know, back like we say, stop crying, jump it out. Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids, man, they not really tough. They try to mask their pain and what they feel can project toughness, but it's not real toughness, because they're not working through any of their issues.
So as we get to that point, I just want y'all to complete this sentence. To be a man, and then what comes to mind after this conversation?
To be a man means you need and have to have a relationship with God. And what I mean by that is that if you don't know who God is, God don't have a place in your life, you're searching for your answers in the wrong place.
So to be a man for me is you have to have principles that lead you daily. And what I mean by that is kind of like what you're speaking about, you know, anchors. Mm-hmm. It's like if you think about a ship in the middle of the ocean, if you don't have an anchor when you're going to dock at a certain space, you're literally just floating around. Wherever, you know, the crew goes, oh yeah, let's go over here, let's go. You find yourself in the wrong situations, or you're being led by the internet, or you going out all these different paths. And so to be a man, you have to have principles that you live by, and you also willing to die by. Like it has to mean that much to you. And for us as Christian men, God is that's our blueprint. Are we perfect, man? Not by, I don't think anybody. I don't want to speak for y'all, but okay, so I'm not perfect at all. I'll say that. The brothers agree. So we're not perfect men, but we have a blueprint that we study, we communicate with other like-minded individuals about, and we strive to get closer and closer to that daily walk. It's a daily walk. It's like working out. You can't just go to the gym for your New Year's resolution, and then by February 1, you're done. You're not gonna see any progress. It has to be a continuous effort for improvement.
So one thing that I would just say that kind of puts together both of those is like, to be a man, you have to set a standard and stick to it. Like there's one thing that is that will destroy every relationship is being wishy-washy. Going this way one day, going that way the next day, or I say I'm gonna do this, but I do that, or the expectations were set that I'm going to be the provider and the protector, but as soon as something happens, I'm going a different direction. Oh, wait a minute, I'm out. So you have to be able to set that standard. You have to stick to it, and then take the responsibility, all the responsibility, not pieces of it, the entire responsibility that comes with that. And stand on it. If you mess up, that's okay. Look, you can come back, you can keep moving forward. But if you stop, if you quit, if you decide that standard, you're gonna blur this line over here, blur that line over there, cut it out. Cut it out. Because it's not just you that's at risk right here. It's not just you who is affected by you not setting that standard for your life. And it's like, you might be alone, you might not be married right now, but the thing is, once you don't set that standard, now you affect the kids that could be. Once you do decide to have kids, now there's things that you won't be giving to them. And then if you decide to move forward and have any relationship with any female, there's things that you won't be able to give. And automatically, since they're looking at you to be a leader and you not deciding to lead, now that person might be chained to or linked to somebody who ain't never gonna be who they were called to be. Now you done affected somebody else.
And one thing I gotta say, just on that subject, because I've been thinking about it all episode, but I've been trying to, find a good way. But this is why mentorship is so important also. Just because you may not have had these qualities or characteristics growing up, it's even more reason why we gotta pour into these kids. It doesn't matter if it's your biological kid, it's plenty of kids that need strong, principled men to model. They're seeking it, but they're not finding it because not enough men are stepping up. And, people are looking at, well, that's not my kid. We're in the spirit of selfishness, and we have to band together as a community and try to right these wrongs, because these kids really need help. They need more men to be examples.
And we done mentioned it a few times. I don't think we need to go into all the details again because we've outlined it. Men 2.0, you can press the card up above or the link inside of the description to learn more about it if you want to be a part of it. Like they said, there's a lot of substance in it, and it's a group that you definitely want to be a part of if you are trying to develop as a man and you aren't already plugged into something else. But with that being said, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We definitely appreciate you for watching this episode. And with that, thank you for joining us. If you like this episode, there's one on your screen. Go ahead and press there and we'll see you there. Peace.